Brazil will hold its second round of presidential elections on October 28th after no one candidate won a majority of votes in the first round. Conservative candidate Jair Bolsonaro came very close, collecting 43.6% of the vote. The nearest challenger, left-wing candidate Fernando Haddad, won 29%. Now, Bolsonaro's strong showing came despite no backing from major parties and little funding. Haddad immediately claimed that the results were because of election fraud. Political analysts were impressed with Bolsonaro's showing.
Having managed to get 46% of the votes, with very little television airtime, barred from much of the first round, without being able to campaign in the street, without a national party structure, is a remarkable result that Jair Bolsonaro managed in the first round.
Now, after reviewing the results, the Eurasia Group put out a note giving Bolsonaro a 75% chance of winning the election. Joining me now to discuss is Gerald Brant. He is an advisor to the Bolsonaro family. Thanks for being with us, Gerald.
Good to be here, Michelle.
So, Gerald, a very narrow miss for an outright victory, almost 50% of the vote. Keeping in mind, this was a French candidate when he announced that he's running. What is the Bolsonaro family feeling and saying to you right now?
Well, he came a long way, and this was really a transformational election for conservatives in Brazil. The difference between Bolsonaro and his opponent Haddad, Lula's puppet candidate, was about 18 million votes.
Well, the vice president that Lula would have picked to run had he been out of jail.
That's exactly right. So, you know, not only did Bolsonaro win a very definitive, victory in the first round of the election, he also was able to kind of, because of a huge wave that happened like a week before the election, elect a lot of basically members of Congress who will be backing him in the future, which is very important to pass important structural reforms in Brazil.
Well, let's talk about that assassination attempt, because that was the last time we had you here in studio with us, right after Bolsonaro was stabbed at a rally in September. How has that impacted his campaigning?
Well, you know, at the end of the day, that incident gave him a lot of exposure at a very important time. You know, during this campaign, he had very limited television ad time, and that was really offset by the fact that he got all of the exposure following the attempt, and also offset by the fact that Bolsonaro leveraged social media very effectively. Right. You know, his followers on social media were several times the number of his opponents. Over 10 million, believe it or not.
It's interesting that you mentioned social media, because Bolsonaro on Facebook thanked his supporters, saying, "Let's make Brazil great. Let's be proud of our homeland once again."
That's right.
Where have I heard something like that before? That kind of echoes President Trump, and he has said that he respects and admires President Trump. How do you see U.S.-Brazilian relations going forward under Bolsonaro, should he win?
Well, I think this is going to be a tremendous opportunity to strengthen Brazil-U.S. ties. Bolsonaro is very committed to improving relationships with the U.S. and really rebalancing Brazil's foreign policy away from the BRICS construct. In other words, less of an emphasis on relations with China in particular, and a closer strategic partnership with the U.S. and democracies in Asia, such as Japan, Taiwan, and South Korea.
And Brazil moving away from China would certainly be a foreign policy move that the U.S. would like. Gerald, when I had the honor of speaking with Jair Bolsonaro, he told me that should he become president, the first country that he will visit will be Israel.
That's right.
Any indication if he plans on sticking to that? 100%.
Yeah? Yes. And, you know, what he has said is that the first visit will be to Israel and the second one will be to the U.S. Well, and we're really counting on the win at the end of October. It's looking very good.
Gerald, the Brazilian markets very happy with this result, rallying the Bovespa equity gauge up 4.1%. The highest, the biggest surge in more than 2 years. The Brazilian real at a 2-month high. Why do you think the markets want him to be president? What are some of the market-friendly policies that he's expected to enact?
Sure. Well, his economic advisor, Paulo Guedes, is a University of Chicago PhD. He has a lot of credibility in the financial markets. I think Bolsonaro has been able to position himself as a free market candidate, unlike his PT opponent. So I think it was a huge sigh of relief by financial markets to see that Bolsonaro is very well positioned to win, as opposed to the PT Workers' Party candidate.
And he's planning on putting together some tax reforms, some structural reforms.
That's right.
And he'll need a strong coalition, though, to get that through.
Well, there you go. And that's critically important. Initially, there was an impression that, well, even if Bolsonaro wins, he's not going to have a majority in Congress. He's not going to have enough political capital to really get things done. And as a result of this wave that we saw in this election, he has a very, very strong base of support in Congress. Also, conservative governors were elected, and the left really lost a lot of seats. So it's a transformational moment in Brazilian politics.
It absolutely is. Gerald, thanks for breaking it down with us, and good luck to the Bolsonaro campaign.
Thank you.
We'll have you back, I'm sure.